Welcome to another special edition of In the Labs with Todd and another great Christmas toy. This one is inspired by my son. For years now we've had this Santa sleigh and it came with some reindeer and a Christmas tree. I think now we only have maybe the sleigh and 2.5 reindeer left over. The tree is in multiple pieces. We only have a few parts left. So I thought it'd be kind of fun if I could rebuild one of those for him. This is one of those things, it started out as a Christmas decoration. You put it away every year. The kids love it. They bring it out every year. It's been quite a little tradition in our family. Now this is a really basic tree, really easy to make. And one of the things, or one of the features of our software that I do use is our shape creation tool, and that's to make these lovely branches that we have here. It's really easy to do, and I'd really like to show you how I did that. When I was thinking about my tree, I felt that I had to come up with some nice, smooth shapes, three-dimensional shapes for the branches and the star on top. Luckily, in our software package called Aspire, we can take closed and open 2D vectors and create 3D shapes from those. And as you can see right here, this is Aspire, and in my 2D view, I have a closed vector that looks kind of like a star, and in my 3D view, I don't have anything right now. So with this 2D vector chosen, I can go to my Modeling tab and choose to create a shape from a vector outline. Just go ahead and click that. Now this form gives me some interesting options that I can use to create my three-dimensional shape. I've got a shape profile I can choose. I've got some ways to tell the software how we'd like it to finish off that final height. We can tell it how the different components should interact with each other if there's more than one component in my actual project. But to start out with, let's just go ahead and have a look or test some of these different shape profiles and see if they work for us. Select the dome profile. And we're just going to go with whatever settings are here, except for we're going to choose no limit here, and we're going to click apply. And you see that right in our 3D view, we're going to get a 3D shape. So our software has taken this outside vector and applied this shape profile with these options to it to give me this shape. Now this isn't exactly what a tree would look like, but maybe I could limit my height. That might give me something a little bit closer to what I'm looking for. Yeah, that kind of looks like branches of a tree, but still not quite right. So let's just go ahead and try this angular profile and see if that gives me what I want. No, not exactly right yet. And then I've got some other options here that I can go through one at a time and just see if I get what I'd like. And these come even closer to what I'm looking for, but they're still not exactly what I think I need for the shape of my branches on my Christmas tree. Now I have one last option here, and that's this one right here called Custom Vector Profile. So what I can do is I can take my own vector profile that I create, not a dome or this angled shape, and I can actually blend it between two vectors if I want to give me a nice sort of profile and exactly what I'd like to have. So let's just go ahead up here to my different layers manager. I'm going to turn on this layer right here, which I have some pre-drawn up extra vectors for me. So if I go ahead and I choose this option here, which again is Custom Vector Profile, and holding down my Shift key, I'm going to select this outside vector and then this inside vector, and then I'm going to choose this Custom Vector Profile, and I'm going to go to choose Blend to Intervector. Make sure I have this option checked. We'll hit apply. And we'll see what we get. So what I've done is I've taken this profile or this cross section and extruded it or blended it between these two vectors all the way around, and the software's automatically created a plateau in the center for me here. And that's pretty much exactly what I think I'd like to have for the branches of the tree puzzle. Now I can use the same sort of process without the custom vector. I can just use the angular vector or angular profile, to create the star on top. So I think I have everything that I need to create the 3D elements of this Christmas tree puzzle. So let's go ahead now and have a look at the actual final file that I used to design and cut the Christmas tree with. Now it's always important when you use somebody else's file on your CNC machine or to cut a project with that you need to check all of the tooling before you go ahead and cut it. The stuff that I've done here is based on my CNC machine, the tools I have on hand, and also the materials that I'll be cutting into. So it's really important that we keep everybody safe by checking over all the tooling so it's safe and appropriate for what you're going to do. So we're just going to click OK here. Now you'll see that this happens to be a 2-sheet job. So over here we have a sheet that's called components and cutting. So these are the finished parts that I'm going to cut on my CNC machine. But before I got to that, I have a design over here. So I created a design sheet. And on this design sheet is all the stuff that I went through to figure out how I was going to get to the final parts that I need to create my 3-dimensional Christmas tree stacking puzzle. So first of all, I had to decide what the side profile was going to look like of my tree. So I have a base, I have a dowel that goes up the center, I have these rings here that create the trunk, I have these branch layers here, and then I have a star that fits on top. Now, when I started to think about how the star was going to be made, I actually need to make it into 3 different parts. With our CNC machine, I can only cut from the top down. So if I want to put any kind of shape on the top or the back of this star, I can't actually get into the bottom to create the hole so I can fit it on top of the dowel. So to do that, my thought process was to go ahead and create my star in 3 parts, a front and a back, and then a centerpiece. And when I glue it all together, I'll have this little channel in the middle that will fit over the top of the dowel. I think that's a pretty good plan. Now, when I was figuring out my different layers here of my tree, or the different branch layers here, I decided to develop a top-down view so I could really get a sense of how big this is going to be, and also how these branch layers are going to look and how I might develop these into the 3D shapes that I need. Now, this is a very iterative process, so it starts out with something like this, and then as I get to actually developing the final parts, things do change because I might come up with a better idea, I might come up with a nicer sort of shape that I want and a better way of developing those shapes. So that's important to remember. This is totally just the design stage here, and things can and most often do change. Over here, you'll see I have my different branch layers already pulled out from this. And what I was kind of hoping to do was to create my shape between these 2 vectors here, but that didn't work as well as what I thought. And as in my demonstration a minute ago, I actually went down that process in the end of using a cross section to do that with. And the result, I think, is going to be much nicer in the end. I've got my parts here for my trunk, and then I have a base here. And then on the side, I'm going to have a piece of dowel that I've just bought that I'm going to go ahead and cut to the proper length so it fits and glues into the base. I think I have all the stuff that I needed to go ahead and start to develop my final parts for this project. So if we jump over to our components and cutting sheet here, you'll see that it's a double-sided job. So I'm going to cut this side, and I'm going to go ahead and flip my board over, and I'm going to cut the back side. So that makes life a little bit easier for me. And if I go ahead and look at the 3D view, you're going to see that I have some 3D components already built. There are those branch shapes. And like I said, you saw how I created those a minute ago, and they look really nice in the end. I have a star shape at the top, and these stars, that's be the front and the back of the star, and it'll be glued to a middle bit, which you can't see right now, but it'll be cut out of our material in that spot right there. And at the bottom here, we're going to have a base and the actual trunk. Now, I've opted to use a special toolpath strategy to create the base and the trunk, and that's called a molding toolpath, where I actually take a specific tool, this would be a ball nose tool, so a tool with a rounded end, and run it around a vector, but using this profile to define that shape. Now, if you ever used a molding toolpath before, I highly suggest you have a look at it. We've got lots of great tutorials on our website. It's very fast and efficient, and it works really quite nice for these sort of shapes, and we'll see that in a second. So I think that's pretty much it. Let's have a look at the toolpaths I'm actually going to use to cut this with. You see, there are quite a few of them, but we're going to group a lot of these together, so I only have to make a very few tool changes. Let's go ahead now and preview all the tooling for both sides of this job. So we're going to preview all sides here, and this will give us a 3D representation of the toolpaths that we've created and how they should look in the end on our CNC machine. So you'll see that I've got my star, I've got my top of my star, the back of my star, and then the centerpiece is right there for me. I've got all of my sections of my branches, and then I also have the trunk bits here and then my base. And I think that looks pretty neat in the end. And if I go ahead and flip it over, you'll see that on the back side, I've got a little bit of shaping happening on the underside of my branches. That's just to kind of soften the edges. And there's the other side of the
trunk here and the back side of the base. And you'll see that I've got holes that go right through all of the branch parts and also through the trunk bits, so we can slide those onto that dowel. And if we're lucky, we'll be able to build up a nice looking Christmas tree in the end. So that's pretty much it. It's a pretty basic job. So let's just go ahead and send this out to our CNC machine and see how it cuts and get it finished.
You know, that was a lot of fun to make. These branches came out really nice. They're nice and smooth. The finish that I chose, the primer with the paint and then a wax on top of that, they really are quite nice to touch. I think kids would really enjoy being able to stack this up in all kinds of different ways, pulling it apart, learning a little bit of manual dexterity. I think it's really quite nice. I hope that you take some time maybe this year and think about maybe creating one of these for yourself. If I was going to do it again, I might add some raised Christmas balls on the branches, add some garland to paint. I think that would be fantastic. And if you make one, how about you give it away to somebody who needs it and spread a little kindness this Christmas. Well, until next time, I hope you're having fun and keeping safe.